Members, the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, 23 April 2024. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and to other First Nations people who may be with us today. The Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy, understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make, whilst seeking and respecting the opinions of others. May we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively and think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. I'll now ask all those present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives for their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you. Now please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. For those on leave and having leave of absence today, I only mentioned Councillor Lee. The rest of us are all present. Could I ask that somebody moves the confirmation of minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. We have declaration of conflicts of interest now. Are there any declarations to make? None. Thank you. We'll move on. We have no deputations or petitions. The first item then is item 11, which is advice from the Audit and Risk Committee. They noted and offered their support for the Asset Renewal Repair Fund of $4.582 million. So would someone move by the Councillor Martin, who was actually present at the meeting, seconded by?
I have a question. I'm happy to
second it.
We have
just wait for a second. Deputy Lord Mayor seconding. A question.
So with the, they say it's a temporary increase in rates revenue. So with our current rates revenue as proposed in the current budget that we'll consider, is the intention that next financial year that will be reversed in full and the rates will then be reduced by that same amount?
We can only prescribe this year's rates. We can't make a prediction about next year's, but we'll have a long-term financial plan in place after we set the budget.
So then the word temporary in this motion, what does that mean then?
That was what they were asked to discuss.
Yes, but the word temporary, given that it could actually be a substantive ongoing thing, and we could choose not to remove it out of the budget next year, like unless this is a one-off kind of levy increase, then we shouldn't be using the word temporary. That would be...
I don't think we're in a position to predict the future.
So it shouldn't be classed as temporary then?
The wording in the motion was temporary, and that's all I'm offering you.
Okay, well, can I move an amendment to remove...
But you can't move an amendment to the advice of another committee. I won't accept that amendment.
Okay, I'll make an amendment point 2.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what point 2 is.
I'm amending it and including a point 2.
I don't think we can...
You don't even know what the amendment is. I understand you want to chuck it out immediately, but surely you must hear the amendment
We're accepting the
first.
advice of the Audit and Risk Committee.
Sure.
You weren't there and you weren't a member, so you can't amend their advice.
I'm not amending their advice, and you don't know what my amendment is unless you listen to
Well,
it.
you just asked to have an amendment.
Yes. I want to add an extra point 2. I understand you want to object it without even, like, the idea that you would not even consider listening to what my amendment is.
I'm sorry, I think it's ultra vires. This is a recommendation from a subcommittee. It's not possible to make a recommendation.
I'm not changing the recommendation. Here, can you at least listen to what the amendment is before you reject it?
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I have concerns that the councillor is bringing a chamber in a dispute. So I'd ask for him to stop his line of questioning.
There's no line. I'd like to move an amendment. It's been rejected on the basis that it's ultra vires, but you don't know what my amendment is.
I'm sorry, this is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee, of which you are not a member. You did not attend.
That's
you did not hear the discussion. I don't think it's possible for you to amend a recommendation from another committee.
I'm not amending the recommendation. I'm adding a point 2 to this item.
This is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee. I don't believe you can add another point.
Why?
Because it's advice from a committee. That's my ruling. You can move dissent from the chair if you wish to.
No, I'm asking, under what standing procedures am I not allowed to move an amendment to put in another point?
I'm pointing out this is advice from another committee.
I understand that. I'm not changing the advice.
Then what are you trying to do?
That would be a great question. Can I put my amendment?
What is your idea that you think you can change?
What is the amendment? Can I at least let it be written down?
Well, I'm trying to work out how you can amend a report from another committee.
Well, if you let me move the amendment, you might figure that out.
I'm not going to let you move the amendment until you've explained what you want to do.
Okay. So, through the governance, can you type out the following amendment? Point 2, that the council notes that the increase may not necessarily be a temporary increase in rates revenue. So, yeah, but... It says temporary. Okay.
Could you turn your microphone on, Lord Mayor?
I'm sorry. You have every right to move an amendment to another part of the agenda, but not to this part. I've made my ruling. Is there any discussion on this matter further? Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I was at that meeting, unlike my colleague, and there was a lengthy discussion at that committee hearing related to the necessity for a temporary levy to assist in the council clearing its significant backlog and underfunding of asset management and also renewal. An underfunding driven by years of inattention by previous councils and particularly by the council of the previous 4 years, noted at 25.1 of the agenda of the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee was asked to consider this levy for the 24-25 financial year, for that year alone. And indeed, that is all they were asked to do. And so, as a consequence, having considered the circumstances and the serious circumstances, we've talked about this before, where for some reason previous councils had just underfunded our asset maintenance and renewal in areas like, for example, water infrastructure, where there was underfunding, and it was noted by the Audit Committee about $3 million less, 75% of what was required. And that extended to other areas too, Lord Mayor. For example, in the building assets, there was an underfunding of $4.75 million per year, about 69% of what was required. Now, the Audit Committee understood the significance of this dreadful underfunding that occurred during the Team Adelaide years, and resolved.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I don't know what he's referencing, and that is not part of our council
I'll overrule
powers.
that point of order because I attended the meeting. He referenced.
I mean his reference
25.
to the Team Adelaide era, Lord Mayor.
Well,
I mean his reference to the Team Adelaide era. What is this reference
No,
in
I'm
our
sorry,
papers?
I wasn't noticing that. What he was referring to was clause 25 on item number 6.2 at the Audit and Risk Committee.
That's what he should be referencing, Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, if it assists Councillor Kouros, I won't mention Team Adelaide. It clearly upsets her, and so I won't. Lord Mayor, the Audit Committee has done its job, made a recommendation to this Council in respect of the coming year's financial budget, 24-25, and our annual business plan. We are being asked to endorse it. It seems to me a sensible thing to do. I will not argue with the committee or indeed its considerations. It's straightforward, and I urge members to simply endorse it.
But it's only... No, I'm not speaking again. I haven't actually successfully moved the amendment, so it doesn't count as speaking. Yeah, thank you. What a pleasure. Yeah, very gracious of you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, so this is actually, in my view, quite misleading. So the Audit Committee doesn't have the option to bind future councils. Now, in our budget tonight, we're being proposed a certain rate revenue increase. The only way that you can use the word temporary is that if we have an intention that this is just a once-off to collect this amount of revenue. So this year, say if our total rate revenue is $100 million, we're going to increase it to $1 million for 1 year only, and then next year reduce it back to $100 million. That would be temporary. But the Audit Committee doesn't have the ability to bind us in future, and they don't have the authority to dictate that this won't actually be a permanent increase in the council rates revenue. So my point to the chamber is, and to the Audit Committee, unfortunately, councillors and Lord Mayors and that committee didn't pick up on the idea that binding future councils is well outside their power, and it's actually ultra vires for them to do so. But I did want to make the point that the word temporary increase in rates could actually turn into a long-standing binding increase in rates, and the word temporary is misleading, and I hope that it doesn't get repeated anywhere else.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? If not, we'll put that motion unless you wish to sum up further. No? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. We've now... I beg your pardon? Was a division called? Yes, a division.
Members, a division.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Members, a division has been called. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 12, which is the recommendations of the City Finance and Governance Committee, moved by Councillor Stephen-Tripp, who's the chair of the committee. He has his hand up. Councillor Stephen-Tripp?
Yes, I would like to.
Can I suggest we take it in parts?
Yes.
Or were you intending to do them all on block?
No, suggesting you take it on parts.
Parts. So recommendation 1, which is the business plan and budget, as printed and seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor.
I would like to speak in introducing this, Lord Mayor. So I rise tonight to propose the motion to put our draft budget and business plan out for consultation. And this marks a very important moment in our ongoing journey towards financial responsibility, community development and also budget repair. First, I wanted to thank the administration for their ongoing hard work in getting us to this point in what is clearly a challenging situation in coming up with this budget. Elected members, the headline messages for me are very clear out of this. First, we continue to find ourselves in a period of budget repair. The financial landscape at the moment demands our attention, and we need to navigate through the various pressures, financial pressures that our residents are feeling, that businesses are feeling, as well as what council is feeling. Secondly, the demands in our council are also ever increasing, from the need for greater support for asset renewal and repair, upgrading community buildings. And I know many of us, almost all of us, will have received messages from the community about the drastic need to repair our council community buildings in the parklands, and also the need for continuing support for businesses. The expectations are ever growing. In response to these challenges, our proposed budget aims to deliver on the strategic plan while restricting the rate increase to 5.9%, which is less than what was originally put out there in discussions. Our journey towards budget repair is not going to be one without its challenges, and chief amongst those is the need for pressing ongoing asset renewal, and this has already been discussed here tonight. Personally, I'm not going to cast judgments on what happened in previous councils. Others can commentate on that. However, what we do need to do is look at the information that's sitting here before us this evening. And for far too long, our asset renewal ratios have been below acceptable levels. They've been not just a little bit short, they've been well below acceptable levels, the levels that are expected of councils right across this state. And when we look at the expected range for asset renewal, it's 90 to 110%. We haven't come forward here and talked about hitting 110%. We're not talking about 100%. We're talking about getting back to 92.5%, just getting back up of what is considered to be reasonable for asset renewal. Now, the anatomy of the need for more funding is pretty simple. The assets are worth more, and the material costs for maintaining them are also high. There is no mystery to this. There is no dark, deep secret to how these numbers are coming about. And if we're to be judged for one thing as a council, judged by our ratepayers, whether they be business or residents, or judged by the people of South Australia, it's how do we go about maintaining essential infrastructure and assets here in our city. So tonight, as we vote on the budget, we do so with full awareness of the challenges ahead. And we acknowledge the need to identify operational savings. We've acknowledged that here. We don't hide away from that. Very transparent around the need to identify operational savings as part of this budget going out for consultation. So in conclusion, I urge all members to support the motion, a motion that will put up a draft budget, nearly finished, Lord Mayor, a motion that will put a draft budget out into the community, a budget that balances the needs for ongoing asset renewal, continuing to support our businesses and residents, and for addressing the needs of the community as a whole. Thank you.
To speak, but I saw Councillor Martin had his hand up.
Yes, look, Lord Mayor, I wonder if I could propose an amendment to the first point here. I have supplied it to the administration, and perhaps if they could bring it up for the benefit of colleagues. It is that we amend page 72 of the public consultation document. I think that's page 89 of your 83 of your agenda, page 71 of the consultation document, page 83 of tonight's papers. And what it asks is for the document going out for consultation includes an explanation of why it's necessary for us to have a temporary, that is a 24-25 levy in order to fund asset maintenance and renewal. Lord Mayor, may I speak?
Can I just think about this, whether it could be worded somewhat more respectfully, because we all know that the previous council did not spend as much money as they might. At least 2 of those years were in COVID. I feel uneasy about us actually putting out a document that names and shames them.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. The
I-
actual information that he's actually stating
Councillor, I'm
is
just
actually false and misleading,
canvassing.
because I've actually got the ratios of all the years.
Councillor, can you just allow me to canvass this quietly without getting agitated?
I'm not agitated, Lord Mayor. I'm just saying that it's false and misleading.
Can we just stop? Could you just sit down, Councillor Martin, while I just ask for some advice, because I'm not sure that we're quite on the right track here. We have talked about budget repair, and I don't mind using that phraseology because it's less loaded. It's less loaded than actually blaming the previous council, because I don't think that the problem began with the last council. It began several councils ago, and we have all inherited a backlog that is very significant. And I don't believe it's in the last 2 years or even in the years of COVID. There's been a failure to invest over the last 12 years. So let me just look at this. I think we could say we have, in the report that we saw at the Audit and Risk Committee, it said not achieving our this is a reflection of not achieving our ARFR, which is the investment funds required. In previous years. I'm quite uneasy about this, and I don't know quite how to get it back on track.
Lord Mayor, may I just assist by saying I'm open to... I keep getting interrupted.
Sorry, point of order, Lord Mayor. I'm being harangued directly to my right during a conversation. I didn't ask you a question.
No, we don't need to have a discussion. Councillor Martin is going to change the wording, I think, and I'm just willing to...
Oh, I'm happy to change it in any way that you would
Lord Mayor, the interjections
Mayor.
persist from my right, and I can't hear what the discussion is. Point of order.
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to accept your guidance. I have specifically not mentioned any council. I have simply referred to councils as in previous years, and I have noted also that in some cases the spending was around 60%. That was the case in some previous councils, but there's no mention of the last council. And it certainly doesn't contain the words Team Adelaide.
I also have another objection.
Lord Mayor, may I offer you some assistance? The administration has given me a chart of the ratios of...
It's a different issue, though. I've seen the chart you've been given. I'm prepared to
I do
accept...
have a point of order as well. I mean, not like, first of all, it doesn't do anything, doesn't actually inform it, but moreover, it actually criticises every single administration and the staff who have worked with previous councils, putting together budgets, and actually making recommendations to council. So what you're doing by this motion is, and probably some of the staff are still here as well. No, it's a point of order saying that it goes against our standards and guidelines and behavioural conduct.
Well, there's no breach of behavioural guidelines, Lord Mayor. I am simply putting a motion to you. You have suggested you'd like to see an amendment. I'm happy to take any amendment on board. My intention is simply to alert our ratepayers through the documents that go out to public consultation, through a minor amendment, that the reason for that levy is because of our underspend on asset renewal and maintenance by previous councils.
So can I just lead you from the chair? There are 10 people in this room, and there's a possibility I'll have to make a casting vote, and therefore I just would point out I would be prepared to support something that said in order to invest an acceptable level in our ARFR investments, so that it would be less judgmental. But
may I help, Lord Mayor? Why don't we put the chart, since the ratio...
The charts. We're just going to try and get a few words so that we can... If you want to vote against it, you can, but I'm softening the blow.
Well, I think it's misleading, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Would you be prepared to accept that?
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to accept
Thank
that.
you. So I think we've got an amendment that says... sorry, what do we say? typing now, would have an amendment which said something like, in order to invest an acceptable level of funds to achieve our ARFR targets. Would that be an acceptable phrase? Can you assist me, please, Acting CEO, just to make this less rude?
In order to ensure investment at a level, rather, delete acceptable. Level.
Get rid of all funds.
All funds. Yeah.
Get rid of all funds.
To achieve council's asset renewal funding ratio target.
Contorted way we've landed on this.
No, Lord Mayor, I'm happy as always.
And your second is happy to accept that variation? Thank you. I'm sorry, would you like to speak to it now?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, all I'm attempting to do is to provide some guidance to ratepayers about how we find ourselves in these circumstances. The truth of the matter is that this council has been contemplating a rate increase of 3.25%, which is inflation driven by estimates, but particularly the one used here by SACES. But additionally, we have something close to a 4% levy to fix our assets. And it arises in circumstances where, and I'm okay saying previous councils, I think, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Martin, can I just get a seconder? I apologise because the Deputy Lord Mayor seconded the original motion, so I need another seconder. Councillor Giles, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It arises where previous councils, and I won't mention any, although at 25.1 of the Audit and Risk Committee, it does say specifically the past 4 financial years, 2018 through to 2022. But anyway, let's let that pass. There was a neglect, and it was substantial. And we, Lord Mayor, and I think we need to be proud of this, we are doing something about it. And let's just look at where we are. Here we are, April 2024, 1.5 years into our term, and we are, led by you, Lord Mayor, generating in the budget that's proposed an operating surplus of almost $10 million. We're funding asset maintenance and renewal, as the mover suggested, up to 92.5%. We're allocating funds for renewal of parklands buildings with a permanent levy of 1.5%. We've purchased property for housing, Lord Mayor. We're developing housing for the City of Adelaide. We're servicing debt. We are restoring financial responsibility to the city. Let me just reflect on where the previous council was 1.5 years into its term. It had generated its first $20 million operating deficit. It was on its way, well on its way to its second $20 million operating deficit. I can't believe that anyone would get into the red that big time, but they did. And they were under-allocating money for asset maintenance and renewal to the extent that, as we've discussed, we're underfunding. And at a time, and we were then, Lord Mayor, 6 weeks into COVID, 7 weeks, at a time when the Prime Minister of this country, the then Prime Minister, was
just have a point of order.
Imploring people.
Have a point of order.
Imploring people.
I have a point of order. That the member's not speaking to the actual motion or the current budget.
Yes, I am, Lord Mayor.
I think he's speaking to item 25 on the AFR, the Audit and Risk Committee.
I am, Lord Mayor, and look, thank you.
And the basis for this discussion.
But that was the last motion, was it not, Lord Mayor?
No, I've referenced that, Lord Mayor, yes. And Lord Mayor, as the then Prime Minister was imploring people to retain their workforce 6 weeks into COVID, This one was dismissing staff, consigning hundreds of people to the lists of the unemployed, 6 or 7 weeks into COVID. Lord Mayor, I've been frequently interrupted, and I would appreciate just a moment to finish. Lord Mayor, my point is that this council is proposing a responsible budget and annual business plan. This council is showing leadership in financial management. If any of you members here have somebody who was a member of the previous council tell you that you are not, let me say to you, they had no financial credibility. This council has financial credibility and is demonstrating immense responsibility. And I urge members to support this budget wholeheartedly. It will set the city in the right direction, the direction we want to take it in.
Councillor Giles, no. And so Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Lord Mayor, just a question. There was a statement made by Councillor Martin about this council developing housing. Is there any more information on that? Can we get some clarification on that, please?
I'm not sure what sort of clarification.
What was that statement referring to?
Well, I think that the councillor, I interpreted it as continuing the policy that the council's had for some years. We purchase land now, but we've been doing this for 30 years.
But the statement developing houses, so that's what was made. So I just want to get some clarity on that statement.
I think he was possibly referring to 88 O'Connell, the bus depot, and potentially Flinders Street. So if your seconder, we should know, Councillor Davis.
I have an alternative motion or an amendment.
I think you've already spoken on this, haven't you?
No. As much as you'd like to stop me.
I'm sorry. You haven't spoken on the amendment yet.
I haven't spoken at all to this motion.
No. Well, you have spoken many times, but you haven't spoken on the amendment. I think we have to deal with this amendment before we deal with another one.
I understand.
Thank you. Councillor Giles? No? If there are no other comments, I'll put the amendment to the vote. All those... I'm sorry? You wish to speak as well? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for your rational response to the first part of the amendment. I appreciate your leadership in actually directing it to a very respectful manner. I think we have to be clear that in our reporting that we did have COVID years, and they were very, very intense years, and a lot of councillors had different ideas on how we can save our city, because that's how it basically felt, saving our city. We even had motions from the then Councillor Martin asking for a reduction of free rates for 6 months, which would have impacted our budget of an extra $15 million. So the fact that that didn't get up is we're very grateful, because it was really good that
Point of order, Lord Mayor. A personal explanation. There was a massive discussion at the time, supported by Councillor Kouros and others.
Point of order. There's no such thing as a... Yeah, but there's no such thing as a personal explanation.
At the moment, we have any personal explanation from Councillor Martin. He wishes to defend his reputation. I understand that there was a free-ranging debate. I think we should just back off this one, and we won't proceed any further.
Merely showing ideas that were thrown around, Lord
Yes,
Mayor. To save
it's a lot of ideas.
And there always are a lot of ideas.
Lord Mayor, then it should not be characterised the way it is.
Well,
but,
it's in our papers.
It's in our papers.
I think all of these motions have come up to be taken out of context.
Oh, no, it's detailed in the past papers on the 13th of April 2021, if you would like to look that up, Councillor Martin.
Look, Lord Mayor, I cannot recall. I do remember supporting
I've got it
a lot
right here,
of
if you would like to read it.
Councillor Kouros, can I just ask you if you're actually speaking to the amendment?
Well, I'm being constantly interrupted, Lord Mayor, so I'm
are you speaking to the, can you just try to stick to the amendment?
I'm trying to speak to the amendment, but I'm being interrupted, so I'm very sorry. So what I'm bringing myself back to the amendment, we're talking about the previous councils in their delivery, and yes, exactly as Councillor Davis has said, we cannot speak and criticise administration's work and the previous council because we all weren't there, but Councillor Martin was, and he can speak to the last 10, 15 years. I'm losing track to how long he's been here.
A point of order, Lord Mayor. I wasn't elected 15 years ago.
Oh, sorry, 10, 15. Sorry, I'm losing track. Sorry, Councillor Martin. So in regards to... So, getting back to our ratios, we can be very specific with our ratepayers and talk about 2017-18. We did reach our 91% target there. In 18-19, we reached 76%, and then it went downhill from there, Lord Mayor. We did have COVID. We were on lockdown. We were unable to deliver because our ratios at the end are based on our deliveries, and we were unable to deliver due to being on lockdown. So, yes, he's correct in saying that, but the reasons in why it was specifically unable to be delivered needs to be clear. I think we even recall that we were locked up in our own homes for quite a substantial amount of time. But we were lucky as South Australians. We weren't did not suffer as long as some other states. But here we are, we're getting through that, and 22-23 we delivered 73%, which is less than 18-19, but we're getting back up there, which is great. And thank you, Lord Mayor, for your leadership in this department to be able to make sure that we can get back to our ratios where we were. So I think if we're going to be talking about past councils, we have to put it all in context, and it's really unfair. And I understand there's politics involved here, but it's important that we're not misleading to our ratepayers.
We've got a reasonable motion here, which is respectful of everyone. So can I suggest we put the amendment to the vote? Unless there's anything more to be said, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. A division has been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to the amendment for Part 1. Please stand until your name has been called. In favour of the motion, Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Steventrip, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. That was carried. We'll now move on. I understand Councillor Davis has a second amendment.
To move an alternative motion? Well, not an alternative,
I'm sorry?
a further amendment. I suppose we keep in the changes.
Just for clarity, could we make the accepted amendment appear in this additional amendment? If we could just hold on for a moment.
Yeah. Can I also mention the standing orders, the old standing orders on the website hasn't been updated. I can't find it.
I'm not a...
No, that's right. It's a question.
I've just been informed the Code of Practice is on the website, but there are some elements of the standing orders which have not been converted.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, this is for a deferral.
Yep.
Could I see some other things flash before us?
Yep.
Can we have a typo corrected in temporary?
No, I like it. Happy to defer the motion.
Are you trying to move this as one set,
Well, these are my amendments.
the whole set?
Yeah.
We can't see it on the screen, that's the problem.
Ah.
Is there something below 12?
Well, so I can't find the code of practice on the website. It's the old one.
I think we might have to have you explain to us what you intend to do. It's rather difficult to read all this. Can you just explain
Do you want me to read out what?
And
I'm
have you got a
proposing?
seconder?
Yeah, probably.
Did you have a friend?
Do I have a friend? Absolutely not.
Councillor Abraham today has seconded it. Thank you. So
Thanks, friend.
Would you like to explain what you're trying to do?
Without speaking to it?
I think you'll have to speak to it.
Well, should I allow members to read it? Yeah, give us. I think they might need some time to actually read what I'm proposing.
So we'll just.
Lord Mayor, may I ask respectfully, could we have a paper copy? It's impossible to read the full context. Bottom parts refer to the top parts and middle parts I don't see because I'm reading the bottom bit. Is that possible? Alternatively, well, I can't think of an alternative other than it would have been a good thing if the member had distributed this previously, but
For you quickly.
May I suggest, Lord Mayor, that we go into informal, so the...
We have suspended standing orders until 15:15.
So can he speak
Do
to
you want me to just go through it?
You can speak to it if
Yeah.
you want to. Yes.
Without my time being started. Look, the first part of it in item 1 is simply that it be referred to a workshop on the 7th of May of the City Governance and Finance Committee, and then move the other workshops further down. I want to note that at point 5, that the term temporary, it's not temporary. Potentially, it could actually be that we just continue to apply that rate increase for every other budget here, and I just didn't want to mislead the public. I think they're printing it off. Oh, I'm above. Actually, I'll just go down to 15.
can't see. Is there something else before 15?
Yeah, I'll talk to 15 then.
Oh, what's before that?
Oh yeah, there we go. Oh no. So simply that it just be deferred to a 7th of May finance meeting so that it can then be brought back to council on the 14th of May, so that we have more time to go through the budget and get some more information about some of the assumptions that are already in the budget. And if you scroll down to 5, I don't know what an asset renewal repair fund is. It's just an increase in the amount of rates that we charge. So this isn't necessarily going to be something that's temporary, unless we are actually resolving that it is going to be a temporary measure only for 1 year, which means we actually have to cut it out of the budget for next year, which I'm fine with. But as far as I can see, this is not something that's necessarily temporary, and we're not going to bind ourselves for next year. So I just want to clarify that because it's going to be temporary, that we commit to reducing the rates revenue by an equivalent amount in the next year's budget, given everyone's saying that it's temporary, which shouldn't be contentious, right? Obviously, the Audit Committee understood what the word temporary meant. Going down to item 7, that report come back to us on the 7th of June so that we can actually discuss. Sorry? 7th of May, yep, sorry, 7th of May, so that we can actually discuss the external grant sponsorship and strategic partnership programs, which is what we discussed at the last committee, is actually trying to consider that information, what those assumptions were before we push this out for community consultation. and that the proposed rate increase should be 5.3%, which is equivalent to the 2023 average LGPI from the last financial year, which is, well, not financial year, but annual year, which is actually in real terms what our costs of doing business have gone up by. And if you go down to 15, this is asking the administration to prepare a report on reducing the maintenance of streetscapes, pathing, lighting, repairs, street furniture, everything to the legal minimum for any ratepayer that is an exempt ratepayer. And I can talk to that in the speech. But I think we're owed some $38 million from exempt ratepayers. So I wanted to see what a report and how much money we would save if we actually reduced our maintenance levels to the bare minimum for any landlord that has an exempt ratepayer in their building, to basically reduce the costs of maintaining those streetscapes around those exempt ratepayers, because they don't pay for it, so they shouldn't get it, right? I've actually removed, I did remove in the 1 just going up, in 0.6, I just removed the justification for the 1.5% of rates revenue to upgrade Parklands buildings, just removed where that would be coming from as an explanation, and replaced that with requesting the administration down in 16 provide us with a 2% efficiency dividend across all council operations. In item 17, can we go down? Thanks, Charlotte. In item 17, I'm asking that the administration go through any new capital expenditure to help us make some cuts, because I felt that when we actually went and looked at new capital expenditure, this council didn't really come up with any cuts apart from we considered the ball washer and then decided to continue on with that. And so I thought that what would help is a report based on value for money, and if we could actually find further cuts for particularly new capital expenditure. In 18, I would like to explore the feasibility of establishing a council subsidiary that would actually look at our current assets and maximising to maximise the revenue streams, through our current existing council assets. And as you know, we've got some vacant land, so I'd like to explore the feasibility of setting up an entity that would look at how we can actually go forward and develop those sites. And 19, I think it's imperative that we look at this council budget alongside our long-term financial plan, and that we also include assumptions in the long-term financial plan that we try or attempt to achieve net debt of $0 by 2035, the next 10 years. And that the strategy in the long-term financial plan should talk about strategies for debt reduction, cost control, rate increases, and also revenue enhancement, to try and have a net long-term financial plan which ends at a zero borrowings point.
So I think we'll go back into normal meeting procedures now, and if you'll just allow me to comment from the chair, I think 15 is, if not ultra vires, impossible to get our staff to manage. They'd have to have a rate assessment for every building. They wouldn't sweep up the leaves outside churches or hospitals or schools.
Just a report on what that would be.
I just think that's probably not a good idea. But would your seconder like to comment on this?
What, do you want me to speak to it?
Well, are you going to speak again?
Yeah, I can speak to it.
Okay, please do.
Sorry, Councillor Davis. Before you speak, Lord Mayor, can I just
Lord
make
Mayor, just checking? Are we going back into formality? Okay, thank you.
Lord Mayor, can I just check with the mover of the amendment whether if he is willing to make a variation to point 18, rather than look at establishing a council subsidiary, if we can look at establishing just a Section 41 committee?
Yeah, a subcommittee.
Yep, so let's get rid of the subsidiary and just make it a committee. Yep.
Potentially to say a council body. Or council body. Yes, please. Thank you. Look, I do have an issue with I have dramatic issues with the current budget as it's proposed. I do think that there's been a significant amount of discussion about the rates revenue that we don't collect for a number of ratepayers. I think the Lord Mayor, I think it was about $38 million worth of rates revenue that are foregone from exempt ratepayers. That puts a massive impost on our current ratepayers to maintain those facilities. And I would like to know what is the bare minimum that we can offer to those ratepayers, because it seems to me at the moment that the council ratepayers within the city are actually subsidising a large number of government tenants and who actually pay us nothing, or also things like universities across the state as well. And they were actually subsidising their business model and their entities that I think vastly pull our obligations and puts a massive impost onto our ratepayers. So I think it would be helpful to understand and actually make the point that what is the minimum that we can actually do, and the minimum we can actually provide as a requirement in order to, and so that our council and our ratepayers actually understand the burden that they bear for maintaining those assets. The other thing is, I think if you look at the long-term financial plan, I have really deep concerns with where it's going. I have nothing wrong with increasing the asset renewal rate to 92%, nothing wrong at all with that, and I think that's really good, and that's going to actually cost a lot of money. And our current borrowings projected in our long-term financial plan are $208 million. And I don't think that that is something that we as a council can go out to our ratepayers and say that this is a responsible budget, that it's doing what it needs to do, and that this council has turned everything around. $208 million worth of borrowings is an extreme amount of money. For every ratepayer we have in the city, that's a debt of about $8,000. Now, the current debt per person of the state government is about $13,000 per person in the state. I think it's important that as we go through this budget process that we have a very close connection and understanding with a long-term financial plan. Because if we don't do it this year, we don't do it next year, we won't do it the year after, and we never have those discussions, we can never actually have a discussion about what is a reasonable rate increase for our residents. It actually could be higher than what's proposed. It could be lower than what's proposed based on some of the assumptions that I think in the long-term financial plan. And we need to have a discussion about that in line with this budget, because this budget goes hand in hand with those documents and actually sets us up for next year and the year after and the year after. And so I don't want to kick this can down the road. And what I'm asking us to do is to go back to the workshop to have a bit more of a discussion and get some more information, particularly sitting alongside the long-term financial plan about what we're actually going to achieve. I really don't think we should be going out to community consultation with a budget and then having the discussions afterwards. I think we should go into our community with an informed budget, holistically, that we actually understand what it actually means for our ratepayers. Can I have another minute? Thank you. And don't get me wrong, I think we absolutely are committed to increasing our asset renewals. That's something we should be doing. But I really don't feel comfortable going out based on the number of assumptions that are currently in the budget, particularly around finding cuts and savings. And my understanding was that at the workshop, we actually, the last committee, we actually discussed that the administration could bring that back in some 10 days. So I'd really like to make full use of the time that we have. I don't think this is going to impact adversely. It's within another couple of weeks so that we can have some more information, polish off this budget. And if we really, I believe that we can have this budget going out to consultation within the next 3 weeks. But there are some things here that I don't think we should be proud of. $8,000 per ratepayer is not an assumption that I want to go out to consultation with, and we really haven't done the work to make sure that our long-term financial plan is sustainable. So I'm hoping you'll support this motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If the intention of the mover is to just have another workshop, then this is a very badly worded amendment. And I would like to point out that we have had workshops, we've had committee meetings, we've had special budget workshops where people have come along and at this council, and we have discussed the principles behind our budget. We've discussed the long-term budget plan. We've discussed the need for renewal of our assets. We've linked our budget to the strategic plan, which has gone out for public consultation. We have had a totally thorough process, and now Councillor Davis is asking us to accept a budget that he personally has designed. I think that's very irresponsible, incredibly irresponsible, when what we have been asked to do as part of the Local Government Act is to go through a process that is enshrined and supported and regulated about how we develop our budget. We have very good staff who have done an incredible amount of work, and we've had all the answers to all the questions that we've asked over the period of time. We started this process in about November last year. To come at the last minute and say, we should go out and have another workshop, and by the way, I like this crazy idea and this crazy idea and that crazy idea, without any discussion and any context from our administration, is irresponsible and appalling. So things like, are we going to have a 2% staff cut? Is that what this means? Is there going to be capital expenditure cuts? Does it mean that we're going to reduce our maintenance? The things that our residents actually say they want most is the maintenance of their city looked after. And as the Lord Mayor pointed out earlier, does that mean that you don't get to leaves swept up outside a Pilgrim Church, or that you have to wait longer to be able to deal with the issues in your neighbourhood? It's on one hand an attempt to say that we need more time to discuss this rationally, and on the other hand, it's an economic rational, let's just cut and get the big numbers down without any consideration of what it's like to live in this city. And I do not want to live in a city with a budget designed by Councillor Davis. In fact, that's maybe the reason why he doesn't live here. So I would urge members to go back to the well-considered, researched and properly thought through proposed budget. Put that out to our community. Let's hear what they say, and let's do this in a responsible way. This is an appallingly irresponsible way of dealing with the budget.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and that's a tough act to follow, Councillor Giles. This harkens back to the Team Adelaide years of neglect. Quote from a proponent here: identifying potential savings by adjusting the maintenance, repair and renewal of infrastructure and services. That's cuts, cuts, cuts. We've just come out of a council that was all cuts, and now we're trying to set the ship back on course with responsible management and governance of this city. This is just harkening back to last term, and not the way I want to go. It's the slash and burn of hard right ideology, and not something I will support. And an extra subcommittee for the mover and the seconder to not turn up to. If you don't turn up, that's on you. The rest of us have been getting on with the job.
Hold on. Lord Mayor, I don't think that's appropriate. No, point of order. I don't think that's appropriate for him to determine whether if we're going to turn up to a committee or not.
It's our job to turn up to committee.
I think he's reflecting on attendance.
You're making an assumption.
Thank you.
That's my point of order.
Apologies, there is no assumption. It's all on record. Apologies, Lord Mayor. Congratulations. I'm also concerned that this is corporatising our council, our city, more than it already is, squeezing every last penny out of our city. What's next? A toll road? Putting $1 in the machine to use a swing? Or to walk around a lake? It's absolutely ridiculous, and I will not be supporting this. The amount of work that has gone into this budget by staff and by the councillors that have turned up, let's pass this, let's get it out for consultation, let's get on with our job. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Siebentrit, you're now speaking to the amendment.
Speaking to the amendment, I actually had a question for the administration, then a question for the mover of the amendment. First question for the administration was Councillor Davis has quoted $8,000 per ratepayer as a figure that each individual ratepayer will be responsible in the future. Can the administration comment on whether that's accurate or not?
Through the presiding member, I don't propose to enter the debate, and I have no understanding of the basis of that calculation.
So I understand that is a matter for debate rather than a matter of fact. Okay, thank you. My other question was that in reading through the amendments, is the councillor proposing that this go through in parts, or is it proposed that it go through en bloc?
Well, I'm just assuming that the faction will just vote against it because I am who I am. So
Point of order,
there's
Lord
no
Mayor.
point
There's
really.
only
Just do it
one.
together.
So sorry, is that a yes or a no?
That was a question addressed to Councillor Davis as a matter of clarification. Let Councillor Davis respond.
Yeah, I don't want to waste everyone's time. You guys are all going to vote on block, so
that's a no.
I don't.
Okay.
We'll just put it all together, right? Yeah.
I just want to clarify.
Was it just a question?
Well, it was a question. I think there are actually some interesting points here. It's just hard when everything's been landed on us all at short notice at once. So given that we're not...
So let's have a point of order. Under section regulation 29, Councillor Elliott is commenting and interjecting. He's done that a number of times this meeting. And I'd ask... Well, I did. He said I had no respect for bringing in a motion that I've been working on. He's doing it again, Lord Mayor. I ask that you eject him from the chamber.
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to provide an explanation for my comments. The councillor has stood up and said, I don't want to waste everyone's time after engaging us in nearly half an hour of debate, having given us no time to consider any of this, nor the administration any time to actually provide advice on this, and then has the gall to say, I don't want to waste anyone's time, yet we're still debating a point of order over my behaviour over this item, and then he sits down and says, there's no point going on about this. And my comment was that he has no respect for anyone's time in here because he has deliberately taken this approach to waste everyone's time. If it appeases the councillor, I'm happy to apologise for my comments, but I will not apologise for his behaviour.
I don't believe that the section 29 was appropriate, and therefore we'll move on. Councillor Siebentritt, were you still speaking?
Councillor Davis has clarified my question was that it won't be taken, is not taking in parts.
I've not spoken on the amendment.
I apologise, you haven't.
No, look, Lord Mayor, I'm a bit angry with myself because I've always taken the contribution of Councillor Davis seriously, and it's impossible to do so tonight. May I procedurally ask that the motion be put?
Accepted.
Sorry, I just have a point of order.
No, just a moment. It's a procedural motion. Councillor Noon has not spoken, so she can second it.
Sorry, can I raise a point of order which I believe stops all other business?
No.
I think a formal motion stops all other business, and the motion was that the motion and procedural motion was that the motion be put. I have no choice but to accept it. It's a procedural motion. It has been seconded. It is a legal request. All those in favour of the motion being put? Against? That is carried. So now...
Point of order. Under Regulation 29, Councillor Elliott has been injecting again and further making comments. I'd ask you to eject him from the chamber.
I reject that assertion. I don't believe
Lord Mayor, again, I'm happy to provide a personal explanation. I was providing procedural advice, which Councillor Davis consistently has gotten wrong this evening.
Members, a division has been called. In relation to the second amendment that's before you, please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Kouros, Councillor Davis and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Amendment has been lost. We now revert to the motion as amended by the first amendment. And now we'll go back to debating that matter. And I think so far only Councillor Steventrit has spoken to it. I think, is that true? So therefore it's an open slather again. So your seconder, who was Deputy Lord Mayor, do you wish to comment?
Can I move that the motion be put?
No. You can if you insist. I can't.
I just think this debate has been well and truly run through a mill now. We all know where we stand. We all know all the positions. Let's just get on with the important business of the day. I move that the motion be put.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. This is a very important item.
This is a procedural motion. I'm not in a position to accept debate now. I have to accept a seconder, if there is one. I'm not sure if Councillor Noon can second that. Sorry, I'm just slightly confused. We can accept Councillor Noon. So can I ask now that we vote on whether the motion should be put? All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? That is lost. Okay, so we'll now continue with the debate, which is on the motion as moved by Councillor Steventrit, as amended by Councillor Martin. So who wishes to speak on this now? Councillor Kouros.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is really important, and this is the most important item that you have as a council, as an elected member. And it is not something that you can just put a gag order on or put a gag on and not have the opportunity to be spoken to have it discussed and debated. I voted for the amendment for various reasons. Most of them were reports, which, as Councillor Steventrit pointed out, they would be great to explore. But the other one that I liked in regards to his amendment was the savings. To work, Councillor Martin put an amendment to the committee, which we're bringing forward here today, to reduce the 5.9% and to find that saving of $1.4 million from our external grant sponsorship and strategic partnerships. And we haven't even spoken about that and what that would mean to our city if you start cutting from that. And the fact that Councillor Davis added in with that operations and capital works program gives a broader discussion to be had in regards to what we're cutting, because to be cutting directly from events that bring economic benefit to our city is very, very poor economic outcome. And that is, if we talk about irresponsible, that is irresponsible. If you want to talk about appalling,
Point
appalling.
of order, Lord Mayor, please. A personal explanation. No one has proposed cutting anything. A report has been requested.
Your amendment
a report has been requested from the administration, and that is a significant distinction.
Well, I haven't finished.
Clarify, most of the events are parts of 3-year funding agreements
exactly
anyway.
My point.
So I think that we're getting excited over
Lord
something
Mayor.
that may never.
I'm getting there.
Sorry, I have a point of order.
Lord Mayor, it's David Elliott.
Sorry, I have a point of order. Councillor Elliott, I need to make my point of order.
We know that your length.
Councillor Elliott has been injecting, this is the 4th time he's done it, that you've taken no action. How can you say that you're chairing this meeting with impartiality?
There have been mumbling interjections from several people in this chamber. Councillor Kouros, you have the floor.
Sorry, Councillor Elliott is injecting again?
Can you please stop this?
Can I request extra time, Lord Mayor, because I'm being interrupted? Thank you.
We've stopped the clock because we think you've been treated badly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The other appalling factor here and the other irresponsible factor here is that we are going out to consultation without defining what those cuts are. So I don't think, as you just mentioned, Lord Mayor, we have multi-year funding agreements, and you would not be able to achieve that saving that Councillor Martin is looking for. I think that would be very difficult. But if you throw into the mix the ability or to enable administration to look through our operations and to our capital work projects without going to a consultation. We have a meeting on the 7th of May and we still will be able to deliver the budget. You can have out in consultation an informed budget with actually being transparent to our ratepayers on what we will be cutting. I think that's only fair and that that's respectful. And if that word has been thrown around a lot, respect. We're not being respectful to our ratepayers. We actually are going about it the other way around, and we actually will be bringing this in with a report, and these councillors will be making a decision on the cuts without it going out to consultation. Again, as Councillor Martin grinning there and laughing at me on the other side of this chamber knows precisely...
Personal explanation, Lord Mayor. I was simply observing the skill of the Speaker in constructing the circumstances in the fashion she is.
Can I request extra time for that interruption as well? Thank you. If you look at the capital works budget, there's things that we really could do a deep dive in and talk about. Is there stuff that we could take to the next financial year? Do we have to do them within this financial year? We're talking about, the master planning. I mean, for Victoria Park, do we need to do that this year, or is there certain artworks that we can delay into the following year? I mean, do we need to spend those now? I'm throwing them out there, and I'm not saying that these are it. I'm just saying that we are looking for savings, we're looking to deliver, and we also got in there a Southwest Community Centre for $1.5 million. Is that something that we can retime to another year? We are wanting to deliver. We are wanting to deliver the capital works. Can I have extra time, Lord Mayor, to explain myself? Thank you. And I am not saying that these are it. I'm not saying that these are what we should be cutting. I'm just giving examples. We haven't done a deep dive in our operations. We haven't done a deep dive within your office, Lord Mayor. We haven't done a deep dive with the CEO's office. What possible other cuts could we be doing within our own organisation? Because that is what businesses are doing at the moment. They are looking at their business, they are looking at their bottom line, and they themselves are looking at what cuts they can be doing. And we're not doing that. What we're basically saying is that we will tax you more, we will make you feel some more pain, we will make you, ratepayer, pay for the things that I would like to see in the budget, but we're not considering what we should be doing. And that's what I see, and I will not be voting for this tonight. Reason being is that I don't think I could go out and look at our ratepayers in the eye and say, yep, this is 100% our budget, there will be no other cuts, and you won't be feeling any other pain.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think it's worth pointing out that some of the rhetoric in the chamber tonight is, I think, almost bordering on deliberately fear-mongering. You can't cut a funding arrangement that's already well and trained. No one in this place has at any point suggested that if you are partway through a multi-year funding arrangement, that funding is suddenly going to disappear. That's a commitment that we are following through with. So I think that there's fear-mongering, there is some jumping the gun, and there is some scaring the horses going on right now, because there has been some deep dives going on. And in fact, our 6 asset management plans that have been updated were the deep dive that apparently we need to do across our budget areas, across our operations, across our infrastructure. That was the deep dive, and it found $10 million per year in shortfall over nearly a decade. You cannot get any more concise of a deep dive than $10 million per year. And guess what? We have a bloated grant program that needs to be addressed, and this one aspect of this motion asks that we review that. We are now moving on to another part of our budget that also needs a deep dive, because that was not subject to the same level of scrutiny, clearly, by some members that have carried on from a previous term of council. I want to mention that our grants program does need to be reviewed. I think it's noted, especially across our state, that it is especially bloated. Not only bloated, but it is duplicitous. It is ineffectual. It is pissing in the wind in many cases to offer up some of the meagre sums that we do to some of the things that we offer support to, when we have far more generous and effective, demonstrated generous and effective programs offered by the state government. Not only that, we have new programs being offered by the state government which are far more effective and generous and are duplicitous. In fact, in the previous term of council, we saw rebates offered by council cut, such as the age pension rebate, because state government and federal government were already offering those incentives and those benefits. We have a demonstrated history of overlooking some of the duplications that other levels of government are able to do far more effectively, and then say, well, if we're not doing it, then I'm not supporting anything. Well, what is the point of our support if we're cutting ourselves at the knees, running ourselves into the ground with our assets, if it's just to give a meagre amount of money away to someone that's already getting a far better deal from another level of government? I think that's an entirely responsible thing to do, to review our strategic partnerships and grants program to see what is effective, what is not, because we did it with our infrastructure and we found out that our entire asset base is not doing the job except for our parklands.
Sorry. My question was around, my understanding is that the borrowings in the 2023 long-term financial plan are expected to be $208 million, and we currently have 26,000 ratepayers. Is $208 million divided by 26 $8,000?
Is that the
through the presiding member, I
question?
think the members are.
Comment or any other debate? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be brief. I think despite the debate, there are some things that we can agree to. We can agree to fund asset repair, and I think right across the chamber here this evening, we've heard that there's a strong desire for asset repair. We've also agreed that we can't add without cutting, and Lord Mayor, you laid down those guidelines at the very beginning of this exercise. You said that if we add, we do need to look for savings, and indeed, we're very clear here. We are committed to identify savings, and they're not just restricted to some parts of council. We've already got a commitment here to looking broadly across operational savings, and I think Councillor Elliott started to outline some of the other areas that we may need to consider as well in the future. One thing I'd urge elected members in considering this is to look at how do we continue to get behind asset renewal, get behind restoring community buildings in our parklands, get behind lifting our focus on climate resilience, and how do we continue to support our main streets. I encourage elected members to support the motion which delivers on our strategic plan and helps meet, most importantly, what our community expects from us.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? I believe that's carried. A division's been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to the part 1 of the motion before you. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Stevens-Tripp, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
I'll now move on to item... Thank you, members. Item 2 and 3 on the agenda for item 12. So that relates to the integrated community engagement. Someone to move part 2 and 3, so that's 7.2 and 7.3 as recommendation 2 and 3. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 13. There are 7 parts to this item. I don't know if there's an appetite to move them on block. Councillor Elliott moved on block, seconded by Councillor Noon. Is there any debate on those matters? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. I'll now move down to item 14. There are no reports from the Chief Executive, Acting Chief Executive. In terms of my report, it's been quite a busy fortnight. We hosted the Adelaide Equestrian Festival, which occurred over the last weekend. This event was particularly important because it was one of the only 7 credible events that can be chosen around the world to select team members for the Paris Olympics. This year they had the largest number in living memory. Over 30,000 people turned out at the weekend to watch some of the best riders in Australia and New Zealand compete across the parklands. The cross-country event was 11 kilometres in length, which I hadn't realised, and the riders actually walk it twice. I hadn't realised they stayed as fit as they do. The whole point of the event this year was that it was the first event to use the new Rymel Park Lake. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to visit it yet, but it is an extraordinary achievement. The lake shape has been slightly altered. The camber of the slopes have been changed, and over 100 people worked on the $6 million upgrade to get it ready on time and on budget for the horse trials. Where there were areas of bare dirt, it was because the horse trials organisers asked that we didn't lay turf on all the routes because they knew that they'd have to pay for them to be restored afterwards. So there are a few bald patches that were left intentionally in that way. And over the next few months, we should see the restaurant being rebuilt and rehabilitated, ready to be opened next Christmas or thereabouts. Many members joined together to go to Gouger Street and O'Connell Streets to consider the development of those roads and what they thought was important, and those consultations will go on. Last week we continued the adaptive reuse work, and within the next month there'll be the release of their documents website and play sheet basically for how to do conversions. Finally, this morning I had the pleasure of going to COTA's conversation series, a city talk that's sponsored by the council. It was held in the pavilion on the park, which was a wonderful location, and the highlight was meeting Sophie Thompson, who spoke about growing particularly vegetables in small gardens, balconies and verandas. It was very exciting. And we spoke about the opportunities to build veggie gardens in laneways. And I'm now much better informed than I was before about choosing types of cultivars, types of plants that will be successful in small areas. So could I ask someone move the report? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Davis. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Reports from council members, number 16.1, moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Ho. Is there any debate or comment on this? Deputy Lord Mayor.
I've just got just one thing, and I beg your indulgence, I need to use my phone briefly. On Friday, the 12th of April, I was fortunate to represent you, Lord Mayor, at the launch of the Lung Trees exhibit by Peter McElwain, as presented by the Nature Festival at the Adelaide Botanic Gardens Bicentennial Conservatory. This remarkable piece imagines the sound of trees as they breathe life into our atmosphere. It was a pleasure to represent you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I attended the equestrian civic event that the Lord Mayor hosted last week, and it was just wonderful to hear from all the participants on just how amazing this event is, and how, like all the participants, the champions, all of them said that this was the best in the world because it was in this wonderful city and there was so much access to so many activities. I would also like to take this opportunity as a proxy for the Lord Mayor for the Local Government Association at SA to thank Minister Jeff Brock for his exceptional service and dedication to the local government sector. Especially his reforms on the behavioural standards, which I think is evident tonight, and also the election review that he did as well. And I just would like to wish him all the best because he stepped down, and on behalf of the council, wish him the best and good luck to the new minister, which we look forward to interacting with. Thank you.
Siebentrid.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I attend to an event I'm here in Queen Adelaide Room on the 12th of May on behalf of you. The event was organised by Business Event Adelaide, supported by Damien Kittle and his team, to welcome a group of 17 VIPs from Chanchi Changyou Honorary Group from Shandong Province visiting Adelaide, led by Mr. Pam Fang, Marketing Director of Xing Yibao Company. This company apparently have 121 delegates here in Adelaide, and it is the first time the company hosts event in Adelaide. The group are now planning a large delegation visiting Adelaide next year, and the numbers they were talking about is almost 1,000 people. And before they leave, they asked me to pass on a gift to City of Adelaide.
Thank you. I should also mention the feedback we had from the event was that you acted with grace and diligence, and they were very grateful you were there to host it. Thank you.
It is a gift of a hand-woven brocade Yunjing hours ago. All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I just had one. Yeah. Just to note that to correct the record, the attachment to the paper says that I attended the Caterpillar meeting. I didn't. I believe that would have been the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Can we note that? That matter's been noted. So, Councillor Davis?
Yeah, look, I didn't want to feel left out. But I am drilling a 90-metre hole into the ground under Adelaide, and we've found fossils and a whole bunch of dirt, and different rocks are actually exploring it. So, Lord Mayor, if you'd like to come out and have a look at some of the core sampling on site, it could be something interesting for your Instagram.
Thank you. I love drilling underground, and if you find any fossils, it would be good if you told the museum. That I'm sure they'd be grateful to assess them and look after them for you. Thank you. Councillor Giles?
Lord Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that's being currently undertaken by the administration to celebrate Neighbour Day. It's been done in a different way this year, and it's been incredibly successful from my perspective, so that people can, over a month, choose when they're going to have their Neighbour Day. It spreads the Neighbour Day events, and it means that more people are involved in it. So there's been some really terrific opportunities that I've had to meet and be with my neighbours, including visiting and being part of the Neighbour Day event at the wetland, the Victoria Park wetland, where another 100 trees have been planted and lots of weeds were removed on the day. And Green Pakanti Wetland Care, the residents group of that part of the city, has raised with me a special thanks to Holly Southern from the City of Adelaide, who gave up her Saturday to work with them on this project. So I just wanted to mention that.
But someone move noting these reports. Moved by Councillor Noon has done it. Councillor Ho, I'm awfully sorry. Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We'll move on to 17.1, which is the first motion on notice from Councillor Noon regarding building works prior to 7 a.m.
Yes, look. Look, quite a few ratepayers have contacted me over predominantly the last 4 to 6 weeks with early works commencing with either no notification or the day prior. I just want to say that Mr Steve Selensky, the Council's Regulatory Service Director, has been really assisting in trying to mitigate disruption. However, we need to find a more strategic, consistent way of notifying impacted businesses and residents when there is going to be works before 7 a.m, being the regulated time of commencement. Currently, if the developer has received a City of Adelaide exemption, it is then up to them to notify the impacted residents and businesses. And based on what I've encountered over the last few weeks, this has not been the case. And if they've attempted to do this, it's not getting to the people impacted. Mostly the issues of disruption occurs when concrete needs to be poured, and in the summer months, as this needs to occur below 35 degrees Celsius, and hence there is a reason why this needs to be in the cooler time of the morning. However, between May and August, let's face it, we're not going to get 35 degrees, and so hence my motion is limiting the exemption between those hours of 4 to 7. So I'm just looking for a little bit more sort of like strategic sort of behaviour around this, and I think that this is going to be a problem that's going to get greater because there's going to be more development in the city. And I have been contacted. It's not just one area where I live, which is the Weymouth development that's happening, and you've got all the apartments around there, but it's also been 88 O'Connell Street. I've had quite a few people from North Adelaide contact me, and also people from U City, and it's all the same issue about, and I've received videos and photos, and in some cases they haven't actually even received exemption. So this is something I know Councillor Martin he did put forward a motion without notice. I think it was last council meeting or the council meeting before, but this is a little bit more involved, a little bit more that we have to do when we come to the table perhaps in June, and we really need to look at how we communicate to our ratepayers, and do we really need to exempt for concrete pours between 4 and 7 when clearly it's not going to be 35 degrees between May and August.
So, Councillor Martin, do you wish to say anything about this?
Yes, look, I do, Lord Mayor, only in the interests of informing the discussion that occurs in June. And in speaking, I want to expand on what Councillor Noon has suggested. There is an issue with exemptions which are permissible by law under the relevant legislation for concrete pours, particularly when temperatures are going to reach 35 degrees. But one assumes, as Councillor Noon has suggested, that that doesn't apply for much of the year. But there's an additional issue, and it's an extraordinary situation, I think, that the state government legislation allows for council to issue exemptions and places us in a really difficult position. On the one hand, we have building works that seem to be uninhibited by whether or not they have an exemption. They begin work without notice, often to the detriment of residential amenity. But also we're often asked to apply exemptions in circumstances where our residents don't understand, and frankly, Lord Mayor, sometimes I don't understand either. It does not seem acceptable for us to be allowing exemptions at 6 a.m. for work to begin on a commercial building site adjacent to a residential area if the consequence is that residents cannot sleep, are disturbed. And I had one text from a ratepayer this morning who wanted to share with me his pain at 5:50 a.m. when construction began at a neighbouring construction site. Their view was that it was entirely inappropriate, but more particularly, there's never any consultation. The ratepayer I spoke to is living near a construction site, and he cannot recall having received a communication from the city or from the constructor to advise that there would be an early start prior to 7 a.m. It is a huge issue for people living near construction sites, and I hope the administration understands that elected members are being disturbed on a regular basis in the early hours by ratepayers who are concerned about what is happening nearby.
Thank you. I think the challenge is that we no longer really have residential zones. There are residents almost everywhere in the city, so it's very difficult.
That's the problem, yes.
Councillor Davis, then Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, I do want to, I totally agree that residents should be informed of those things. I think that's just common courtesy. But I also want to note that I don't want you to go, look, if a concrete pour has to happen at 4 a.m. in the morning and it wakes up everybody in the surrounding region once in the next 100 years, look, you know what? At the end of the day, sometimes these things just need to happen. And the reality is that if we're all about affordable housing, and if we are about increasing residents in the city, and we are about actually creating fit-for-purpose apartment buildings and things like that, we want to increase density, construction is something that you need to do to build buildings. And that might seem shocking to some people. But on one hand, I think we need to engage with our local residents and make sure that they are fully informed of what's going on. I think that's a common courtesy. And also explain to them what are some of the reasons around why such like a pour needs to occur, something potentially really, really early in the morning. I remember one, it was a massive slab, and I had a lot of residents in the South Ward come to me and say, why can't we do that? I spent the time, spoke to the builder, and they basically said the number of trucks that actually need to come through to lay the concrete, they have to do it in one go, otherwise the concrete slab can split. And residents were saying, well, why can't you just do it in 2 pours and start at a more reasonable hour? And the answer is that if you put a split in the middle, the intense water pressure from underneath the city will go through that and basically create overflow, and you can't do it in one single go. And essentially the builder is saying, this is going to happen once in 100 years. So I understand you're going to get a bad sleep. So we need to communicate better. And in that instance, residents hadn't got any communication on it. So we need to communicate better, but at the same time, if we want to talk about affordable housing, if we want to talk about increasing density in the city, the council can't on one hand say that we want all these great things and then go and smash policy on the other. So I support the motion, but I just want to keep some context in here about the realities of building buildings.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I would suggest that it's perhaps more than just a bit of bad sleep. These are people's lives. That we're talking about mental health and work patterns that are disrupted, etc., etc. So it is more than just a bit of a bad sleep. So I'm in furious agreement with Councillor Noon and Councillor Martin, and I thank them both for their efforts in advocating for this. I know Councillor Sebentra and myself have been dealing with residents in regards to 200 East Terrace as well, where we've got similar issues around work noise and situations around that. So it is good to see a bit of common sense solutions going forward the chamber. We as a council should do what we can to make the lives of our residents and citizens that little bit more easier. 7 o'clock is still quite early from my perspective, but I understand why it has to be done. I understand many of the reasons that Councillor Davis has put forward. I just disagree with his reasoning. So look, I'm happy to support this motion. I encourage my fellow elected members to do so, and thank you again for Councillor Noon and Councillor Martin.
So we're going to have now Councillor Kouros, then Councillor Abraham today, then I'm going to put it to the vote because I think we all know how we want to vote. Councillor Kouros.
I'm just intrigued to know, Lord Mayor, and I've asked this question before and I would like it answered tonight. How many complaints do we get in 12 months in regards to this issue?
I can't answer that.
Through the presiding member, Mr. Aredes, are you able to answer the question, or you need to take it on notice?
We'll need to take that on notice.
Well, I would say that administration do a very good job, Lord Mayor, in ensuring that the correct notices are sent out. I lived next to...
Point of order, Lord Mayor. The administration, Councillor Kouros has got it mucked up. Administration doesn't send the notices. The requirement is on the developer to send the notices.
Well, I've also lived next to a construction site, Lord Mayor, and there was some major drilling that came that they had to do, which disrupted the morning, and I got my notice from the City of Adelaide. I also got my notice from. It was because it was 88 O'Connell. It came through the city. It came from the City of Adelaide at the time. Also, I did get my notice from the developer as well. So forgive me if I misinterpreted that, but I did get the notice. I did. I got it from the City of Adelaide as well. So I don't know. I should have kept it to show it to you, but I did. So I would say that due process is always done by the developer because they have a legislation. They have to adhere to what is required of them. So I just don't know how I feel about this because there are reasons to why they do those pours at the particular time. You have to understand how construction works, and I suppose most of people that have spoken here are residents. I'm the lucky one, Lord Mayor. I'm a resident. I've also built in the City of Adelaide. I'm also looking at building the City of Adelaide, and there it's very complex in regards to building works and in construction. And I can see your face and where we're going with this. But I'm happy to. This is a report. Is this what we're looking at? We're looking at administration coming in to provide a report. I'm happy to do that, but I think we're on a bit of a witch hunt in regards to this.
Councillor Abrahimzadeh, and then we'll put it to the vote because we all know how we're going to vote on this.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I didn't support the original motion that was brought in back in March. I won't be supporting this either. Lord Mayor, I think Councillor Couros touched on something, and that is that it's not just the concrete pours that are painful, if I can describe it that way. Can you imagine having tens of concrete trucks lined up in Adelaide CBD streets at 7 a.m? Can you imagine that? Concrete pours go for hours. Pours go for hours. So from 7 o'clock until 10 or 11 o'clock, you have got 30, 40, 50, in some cases close to 100. I've worked in construction sites where we've had 70, 80 concrete trucks. How will you manage that? So this is what I'm worried about, Lord Mayor, is that it's not just one aspect of it. Let's be open-minded. I know that this is a report, and it will come back to us. If I may, Lord Mayor, there was one bit of feedback that one particular stakeholder has provided me in relation to both of these motions, whether if it's the original one back in March or this. And that is that they say, this is concerning to industry as it appears to be another layer of consultation that is not required. It just makes it feel like nothing will ever get done. And they go on to talk about how they must work within EPA requirements and other legislative requirements. And this is just going to add delays and costs, and it's going to push up construction costs, particularly in the city, at a time where Councillor Davis highlighted perfectly, we're looking at building affordable housing. I can tell you this right now, if you want to introduce these sorts of barriers, the affordable houses that we want to build will not be affordable.
Is it necessary for you to speak, Councillor Giles? Okay, all right.
4 o'clock in the morning is not a reasonable time for anybody to be woken up in their house by loud machinery and construction work. This motion talks about 7 a.m. as a start because it's a legislation. The legislation was brought in for a reason and consulted with the construction industry around why 7 a.m. should be the start, and it was agreed that that was a reasonable amount. We live in a city now where the conflict between people who live in the city and the development of the city, including the development of more people living in the city, is becoming more and more an issue. And it's the complaints that I've been getting as well, and they may not ring the council, but they've certainly been ringing councillors, have come from large groups of people in a building, not one person, and they are generally high-rise to high-rise. They're not low-rise to high-rise. We need to work this issue out, and I think it's a really important one to send the message to people who live in the city that we do want more development in the city, but let's do it in a way that living in the city in the meantime doesn't become unbearable.
Can I have an undertaking, Lord Mayor, from the administration to provide me a report, or provide the council a report? Yeah, but also how many complaints have come through councillors as well. Yeah.
I would. I just want to quote something from the EPA construction noise, and it says construction noise that causes an adverse impact on amenity is only permitted between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. And look, I understand, especially, Councillor Abrahimzadeh, especially, he will not understand because he doesn't live in the city. So at the end of the day, if you live in the city and you're going to have all this development around you and you're more connected to the residents and businesses that are contacting you, and they may not be going through administration, they're coming to you because you're on the ground and you are representing them, then this is what we need to do. These are the sorts of things that we need to actually fix and address before it becomes a bigger problem, which it will. So I look forward to actually the outcome of these discussions, but what I know is that people are not getting communicated to about the works that are happening, and if they do, and I actually was involved in something that happened a couple of weeks ago in my own area when they were talking about concrete pours happening for the month of April because of the weather conditions reaching 35 degrees. Now, hello, have we ever had April that reaches 35 degrees on a consistent basis? No. So this is something that we need to look at, and we need to listen to our residents, and we need to actually be concerned about what they're coming to us about and react in a responsible way. Thank you.
So all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Division's been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to item 17.1. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Couros, Councillor Siebentrip, Councillor Giles, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Martin and Councillor Davis. Thank you. That was carried.
That was carried. Members, we'll move on to Councillor Noon's 17.2, outdoor dining, free exemptions between May and August.
Oh, it's me again.
Do we have a seconder? No. It's going to lapse for want of a seconder. Okay.
Shame on you all.
It's lapsed. Councillor Couros, thank you.
Wow. The irony. As my fellow councillors will recall, I never supported reinstatement of outdoor dining fees last vineyard budget discussions, and there was only 2 other councillors, I think, who did, which was, at the time, Councillor Davis and Ho, that supported my motion that obviously failed. So when we reinstated these fees in October 2023 and have since conducted a survey which in parts gives us some insights in the outdoor dining permit holders, as you can see from the report, we had only 67 respondents, which is a bit disappointing, with various thoughts. But in total, around half responded in wanting no fees, lower fees, no extra charge for screens or blinds, etc. However, face-to-face with cafes and restaurants, even just before this council meeting tonight, when I was discussing an issue with a local restaurant, they certainly have given me an indication that they're not happy with what actually had occurred. This was before the COVID period as well, so I think it's really interesting to note that in the administration comment, the fee model, when they're talking about the annual business plan for 23-24, the fee model has the same approach that was in place when fees were last charged, with the fees increased by CPI. So this was back in 2018, so there must have been a really good reason then to cease fees for these businesses. And yet we, in our wisdom, we reinstated them again at a time where the economic environment is very challenging. So look, I would actually like to see alternative models that are investigated to ensure fairness and equity and compassion in this very challenging economic environment, and charging fees when the majority of restaurants and cafes are not utilising their outdoor dining in the months between May and August is, in my opinion, just a shame. So obviously this is not going to get up tonight, but I hope all the cafe and restaurant and permit holders who actually vote for you guys are listening tonight, because I actually believe that this is disappointing that we are not looking at this for the next budget, not even for this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just full disclosure, this is not a decision-making, it's a report. We have 2 restaurants within the City of Adelaide, but I believe I can vote for this and speak to it, as we're not making any financial decisions in regards to it. Thank you. I think it's great that Councillor Noon has brought this forward. I would have thought that Councillor Martin would be very much in support of it, considering that he had a newsletter go out many years ago. I've still got it with that threatening where he advised our outdoor dining, our hospitality businesses that their outdoor dining fees were under threat. So it was under threat. It was reinstated. And it was a burden that they have, that they are carrying at the moment. It's only a small percentage. It's a small amount to our budget. It's a discussion piece regarding goodwill to our small businesses to ensure that there is not an added expense to their outdoor dining. And Lord Mayor, it really affects the small business owner, I look forward to a report in which we can help support our small businesses.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis and then Councillor Martin.
I wanted to add that I think that outdoor dining fees are, essentially a double take on restaurants. So if a restaurant can provide outdoor dining, it's going to increase the number of tables they have, increase the amount of space. That means that the landlord in a specific spot can charge them more rent, which means that we charge them more rates. So what we should be doing is almost giving outdoor dining spaces wherever we possibly can to every space which can be occupied, because then the landlord says, well, now you can actually put outdoor dining, you can have more tables, you should be more profitable, therefore we're going to charge you more in rent, and therefore we make more rates. So I don't think that we should be in any way kind of discouraging people from doing it and charging them fees. We should be, giving it to them, because I think we'll make more money at the end of the day. So if it's just a small coffee shop and we can actually say, well, you can use this space if you want to, we'll make more money. So I'm happy to receive a report, and I'd love for it to consider an alternative model that we don't do it at all. And the alternative model is to give away the dining fees for free and find more opportunities to give outdoor dining availability for shops so we can make more council rates.
Councillor Martin, and
yes.
then we'll put it, Councillor Ho, and then we'll put it to the vote.
Thank you. Look, Lord Mayor, Councillor Kouros has misled the chamber in terms of what occurred some years ago. It was actually that the council had proposed in the middle of COVID to automatically increase dining fees. It was the case, and indeed the administration apologised to the elected members at that time. I recall it vividly, and in fact Councillor Abrahimzadeh often reminds me as well. So those were the circumstances. Lord Mayor, Regulation 29, as you say, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, look, I support much of what Councillor Noon proposes, but I don't support this. And I don't support it because we have framed the budget. It may have been an appropriate item for us to discuss in the lead-up to the budget, but the budget is framed. The income from outdoor dining fees forms a significant part of our expenditure that is planned in the coming financial year. I would say, though, however, and I do hear the arguments from my colleague Councillor Davis, but it is intellectually inconsistent in my mind that we accept that a landlord will charge a restaurant for the space in which they put tables and a kitchen, but it's not appropriate for the City Council to ask for a similar fee or a fee of any kind for the land that they lease outdoors at the restaurant.
That's a mischaracterisation of. I have a point of order. It's a mischaracterisation of what I said.
I think he's explaining that.
No, what I said was that we.
Yes, I understood what you said.
That it's double dipping for us.
And that it would miraculously come back to us in rates. I
I say that the
saying.
increase in rates of the available space is already there.
Yes,
and we're charging
I understood
an additional
that.
fee.
We all heard it, Councillor. Thank you.
But I'm being misrepresented.
Thank you.
No, I was just saying it's intellectually flawed to argue that one should charge for leasing land in which a restaurant is based, but not charge for the outdoor space. It's just flawed. But look, quite apart from that, Lord Mayor, I think if there is to be a revision of outdoor dining fees, it would be that I would be discouraging, as a lot of councils do, fixed outdoor furniture. And since she raised it, like Councillor Kouros's, fixed outdoor furniture is an occupation of the public realm every minute of every day, whether a premise is open or closed. There are premises who do have movable, unfixed furniture, which is moved in and out, and so the public realm is... May I have just a moment longer? I was interrupted.
Actually, for an investigation for the next one.
Thank you. The distinction between the two, that is those with fixed and non-fixed furniture, is significant. And indeed, I think as a council we ought to be encouraging restaurants like Councillor Kouros's to consider, either with a financial incentive or a financial penalty, to revert to unfixed furniture so that it can be moved in and out. This, in my view, would meet the policy objectives of the city, which is for us to encourage outdoor furniture to be unfixed. And perhaps Councillor Noon might consider incorporating that at some stage. I would welcome that and support it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I do not support this motion, but for the reason very different as what Councillor Martin has stated. Well, I mean, Councillor Martin does not have any commercial leasing background, so hence he would not understand what Councillor Davis has said.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I do have a commercial background. I've operated businesses.
Then, please.
Thank you.
And the main reason why I do not support this motion is because it has a time frame on it. It has limited to a few months. I mean, the council has made the decision to charge the outdoor dining fee only a couple months ago, and it cost me a lot of time to explain to my ratepayers in Goodger Street, in the food precinct, that why this council, we have to charge outdoor dining fees for the good reasons. And now we have to turn back to them and say, hang on, we're going to waive your outdoor dining fee for a couple of months because of the weather might not be good enough. Hey, they can come back to you. In summertime, it's too hot, and it's not good to sit outside too. So I found that we come into like a micromanagement process and cost us a lot of time, not just the elected body, but also the administrations, to work with our ratepayers, to explain to them why we do this and why we do that, why we have to change our policies so often. I really don't want to go down to that path, Lord Mayor. Let's do it. If we have made the decision to charge the outdoor dining fee for the good reasons for our ratepayers, let's do it. And once we, so-called, we fix up our budget, okay, and when we feel that we are comfortable enough to waive all the outdoor dining fees, then let's do it for all the year around, and we don't have to go back to the micromanagements. Thank you.
Like to sum up so that we can put this to the vote?
I just want to clarify just what the motion is actually about. It's not making a decision on actually reducing outdoor dining fees for the venue, for the 25th venue. If people like to read the motion, it actually says to investigate alternative motions that may include looking at exemptions between May and August. It doesn't. That's part of what the investigation would be. It doesn't say that we are to do it for this venue. It's to investigate alternative models for fairness and equity, to ensure that's actually happening, to actually respond to our ratepayers as per the survey. We actually do this survey, we actually get them to do it, we actually get a report, and we're not going to do anything with that. This is actually doing something with that survey, with the businesses that have taken the time to respond. And therefore, we actually take their opinions on board. Oh dear, how novel would that be? And then we actually put that into a report looking at alternate dining options. That may include exempting over periods of time where it's not being used outdoors. So just read the motion, and it's not for this fin year, it's actually for the 25-26. So I'm working in advance here, so we actually can come to the table when we're actually looking at that budget and be a bit more informed on this point. Thank you.
Then all those in favour? All those against? That's lost. Division's been called.
Members, a division has been called in relation to item 7.2. Please stand in favour. Sorry. A division has been called in relation to 17.2. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Couros and Councillor Davis. Thank you.
That motion has been lost. We'll move on to 17.3. This is quite straightforward. Maybe we could get to a vote sooner. Councillor Noon.
It's the noon show. Look, not at midnight. This is a really serious...
I haven't seen a seconder, Deputy Lord Mayor.
This is a really serious matter, actually, because... and there's something that I've been meaning to actually address for some time. I actually work in the building that's actually at the corner of Bath Street and Pulteney Street. And if you actually would like to have a look at just how tricky this whole area is, go and sit in the cafe and have a coffee, and it's a really nail-biting experience every moment of the day, especially in peak hour when people are turning from Pulteney Street right into Bath Street. And in actual fact, when I actually I had to put this motion up, as we all know, by 5 o'clock on Monday before the council meeting, or the previous Monday. And the day after I put it up, there was a cyclist. I couldn't get into my car park because there was a cyclist on the footpath. And it's exactly what actually happened, that he was collected turning, I think it was a motorbike that was turning into Bath Street, and didn't see him because there's a cycle lane as well, but a bicycle cycle lane. So there's all sorts of issues. We've got 3 car parks in this area that people access Bath Street and Angus Street, and you can't access it before 9 in the morning, so people turn right. It is a friggin' nightmare. And at the end of the day, what I would like is just someone to have a really good look at this whole area to mitigate, unfortunately, well, perhaps a more serious incident that might happen in the future. Thank you.
Well, it's just that I think better pedestrian cyclist safety is of paramount, and I commend Councillor Noon for bringing this to our attention. And I will be supporting.
Just a question, Lord Mayor. I mean, have we received complaints in regards to this? Is administration aware of it? It doesn't mention in their comments. They've said, yeah. I just want to. I'm happy to vote for it. I just want to know if this is.
Through the presiding member, Mr McCready, are you able to respond to the question?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the only complaint that we've had has been via Councillor Noon, based on the Friday where there was actually an incident occurred. But as part of the review, we will look to see how many incidents as part of a traffic impact statement.
Vote. All those in favour?
Does Councillor Noon have a conflict of interest in this?
No, she
and
has
if she's
the only
complainant?
She's declared a general conflict.
So shouldn't she leave the
general
room?
interest, sorry.
But if she's the only complainant?
No, she's not the only complainant. There's a cyclist who was on the floor. I've put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And I take it that Councillor Davis voted against that. I didn't see your hand. You'd voted for it. I apologise.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. We need to record
I voted.
Voted for it.
I think you do record it, though.
Councillor Noon. Sorry, Councillor Martin, traffic light crossing times. At outside 88 O'Connell. Seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, it's not actually about 88 O'Connell at all. And look, before I begin, the complaints in this instance have been made to me personally, not to the administration. That administration receives one or a dozen complaints does not invalidate something that's moved on the floor of council. That said, the issue arises because of senior citizens and ratepayers with disability who've complained to me that the time allocated for crossings of O'Connell Street are inadequate to them. Now, the complaints don't relate to Tint Street, which intersects O'Connell Street, where there are special arrangements in place because of the construction at 88 O'Connell, but they focus on other crossings, and most particularly Brougham, where a responsible member of the community with a disability has reported to me that in his estimation, the crossing time is 4 to 5 seconds. It is not sufficient time to move from the button to activate the signal onto the ramp and onto the road before the signal turns red. It is a complaint made by other ratepayers as well. I note that this matter of crossings on O'Connell Street has come up before, came up in a round table in O'Connell Street on April 21st, the minutes of which I've checked. And there is a possibility that we can adjust that crossing time to assist others. This motion simply asks the administration to look into it and to provide a report to council so that we may assist people with disabilities, with mobility issues, to more safely cross O'Connell Street. And indeed, there may be examples for others in other places.
I'll speak very, very briefly, Lord Mayor, and foreshadow that I do intend to support this. I think it's in a similar vein to a motion that was passed unanimously by this council at the end of 2022 about pedestrian crossing automation. I want to just reflect a moment upon a situation that occurred while we were having our walk over on O'Connell Street, where we're waiting to cross a street heading northwards, and an elderly woman with a shopping trolley that she was carrying was waiting to cross the street at the same time as us. The lights changed, and by the time she looked up and realised the little beat was going to tell her to cross, she stepped forward and it changed back to red, and she didn't cross. So that woman would easily have taken 15 to 20 seconds to have to cross that road. And whilst we might necessarily have a crossing time that's afforded by the flashing, blinking red man, which is technically you're allowed to cross but you're not supposed to start, that visual language is really quite dangerous. And what that says to motorists is that pedestrians are not supposed to be there. And as happened during the walkover, we had motorists try and barge their way through while we were all crossing the road as well. That's the danger that I'm worried about, and I think that signals that we need a broader reapproach to pedestrian crossings, not just in the city, but in our guidelines that direct how we actually approach pedestrian crossings in our road transport. It is fundamentally dangerous to have a 3-second green signal or a 5-second green signal, have someone partway across the road, and then the visual language tell you, your time's up, you shouldn't be there, I'm in car go fast, car collects pedestrian. And I can reflect on many other times, which I won't go into detail now, but all the times I've been crossing, been legally allowed to cross, the light has changed to red while I'm partway through, and I won't use the other terms that all immediately came to mind, someone in an SUV or someone in a car decides that they want to try and intimidate me, or they want to try and take the lights when I'm still supposed to cross. So that visual language is really important in guiding motorist behaviour and their respect towards pedestrians. And I know one of the outcomes that came from the PAC automation trial during COVID, which was a fantastic initiative, increased the amount of patience that people were willing to afford pedestrians and cyclists while they were crossing the road, because it automatically happened and they knew that they were supposed to look for it, and it seemed that the behaviour was the change was having a positive benefit for our city safety. So we have now gone back to a really unsafe system, but we're also going back to an unsafe system which was never designed to be that safe for pedestrians in the first place. So thank you, Councillor Martin, for putting this forward, and I look forward to the outcomes of the PSC automation trial of this motion that will come as part of the integrated transport strategy.
Unless there's an alternate view, we'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. No. If not, we'll move on. We've got a block of questions on notice and the responses are on your desks. So they're accepted. Any questions without notice? Councillor Couros.
Lord Mayor, question. Can administration please update the council on the current details of the legal case involving Hyde versus Lee? Can we have that?
I don't think we usually give legal updates
in confidence. We haven't had an update on this matter for quite some time, and I know that there has been some legal proceedings on this matter, and I just...
The problem is we are not in confidence at the moment, so we can't give an update.
I can...
So,
can I have an undertaking?
And I don't think we have any legal advice, do we, Mr. Sedgman?
I can provide an update on where the case is at.
Basically,
and then we are going to go into confidence shortly so that we will have this discussion then.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can I just request you don't provide me with that update? Can you not provide me
I'm
with
happy
that
not
update?
to provide you with it. Thank you.
you.
Can I then ask if there are any other questions without notice? If
Yes, Lord Mayor, if I may, in relation to one of the questions on notice. And indeed, why is he so privileged? Why does he miss out on the briefing and all of us have to attend? Sorry.
Because I represented Rex Patrick in the Court of Disputed Returns.
Thank you, we know that.
And I also, well, yeah, I mean, I have a conflict there, so, and I also have a procedure in place with the administration, so I don't receive that information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, in relation to 19.6, festoon lighting, the administration has referred to me to the minutes of the May 2021 Lord Mayor Roundtable as referencing, in response to my question, which minutes mention festoon lighting. They've referred me to link 1 provided in the response, but there's no mention of festoon lighting. Is that the correct date, or is there some other document that I should be viewing?
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I can't see. Are you referencing 19.6 answer?
Yes, I am, Lord Mayor. As a follow-up question, in 19.6 I asked which of the meetings of the Roundtable discussed the installation of festoon lights to enhance businesses between Lombard and Gover Streets. In response, the administration says discussion for an aspiration to install ambient shopfront lighting is reflected in the minutes of May 21 Lord Mayor Roundtable meeting. There is no mention of festoon lighting in there. Is the administration referring to some other document, or can it not provide that document? That's my question.
Do we need to take that on notice for clarification because there's an error in this link?
Through the presiding member, I think Mr. Reedys is able to answer the question.
Thank you, and through the chair, in response to the question, contextually our answer is correct. There's no direct reference to festoon. We were referencing the request for lighting at that time, and there was no reference specifically to festoon lighting in any previous minutes, just to responses to lighting that relate to ambient lighting.
So, Lord Mayor, a supplementary question then. The response to the previous question on this matter was wrong as well. It referred to there being a minuted decision. There was no minuted decision at all. It related only to ambient lighting, not to festoon lighting.
I'm sorry, I've lost the thread of this. I can't follow the arguments. I need advice.
I think, through the presiding member, I think the administration understands what you're saying. If the whole matter hinges on the definition of festoon versus ambient, which I think is we could. Mr. Haridis.
Thank you, and through the chair, nothing further. It's in the with regard to the interpretation of ambient, including festoon lighting, or the specificity of festoon lighting as the only type. That's the intention of our response.
It's item on the agenda 19.3 regarding the renewal projects. I just want to ask regarding Guja Street, was that retimed in regards to when the forecasts of the renewals were meant to happen? Like, because I seem, anyway, that's the question.
I'll extend that through the acting CEO.
Through the presiding member, Mr McCready, are you able to answer the question?
Through you, CEO and presiding member, the renewals are linked to the asset management plans, and what you have presented before you is the revised asset management plans with the renewals aligned to the years that they're actually going to be expensed and delivered.
So some of them were retimed, is that what we're saying? They were scheduled for other years, but we brought them forward?
We
right?
typically don't move renewals by any more than 12 months, and these fall within the renewal period in regards to asset renewals, as listed in the 6 AMPs have been presented to Council.
Right.
Thank you. We'll move on, and we will now have an exclusion of the public for item 21 to exclude for item 22, which is on our confidential notice paper, but we will also have an exclusion for the legal advice related to people, which will be held in confidence. So
I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest in relation to the matter, because I think I have a commercial interest in the next item.
So you're declaring we'll put the matter on notice at the end of the agenda if you want to stay for the other matter. No? Conflict in both? Okay. I'm sorry, I hadn't understood that. Would someone move agenda item 21 then, please? Moved by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Elliott. And in order to exclude for item 22, that's the item on the agenda. Would someone move that exclusion? Councillor Abraham Zadeh, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? All those against? And then we'll have exclusion related to a matter involving litigation.
You're in confidence, so you can take a question.
I can take the question. I'm sorry, I was going to move another exclusion.